Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 193 of the Last Round Podcast, powered by Manscaped.com. Don't forget, use the code TLR Boxing. That's TLR Boxing at Manscaped.com for 20% off. Help us out. It kicks us back some support, keeps this show going. So we were talking about it just before we started recording here, literally 30 seconds, a minute before. A lot of the content we were going to go over for this week in terms of reviews of the past week's fights obviously isn't happening because the fights that were scheduled to happen this past weekend, I think all of them, at least all the primary ones we were going to touch on that we previewed last week, were all in the UK. And what happened, Mike? Tell our listeners who might not be aware of the world events what happened and how come we didn't get those fights.
The sad passing of Queen Elizabeth obviously happened in the UK. I'm sure, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, I'm sure everyone's, seen that and, paid their, best wishes to her. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see Savannah Marshall knock out Clarissa Shields.
So for our non-UK listeners, our American listeners, people who might not be too familiar with, I guess, UK traditions, UK law, because following the announcement of the Queen's death in the UK, we were texting back and forth, and you said, "Oh yeah, 100%, the event's going to get canceled. It won't happen on that for sure." And I said, "Oh, are you sure? It seems like they haven't really released it. Why wouldn't they just say it right away?" And you said, "Oh yeah, there's like a period of mourning or something that traditionally happens for something like that." And then there was like some debate going back and forth throughout the rest of the day, maybe less than a day or so, about, oh, is the fight going to get canceled? Is it going to get postponed? Are they going to go through with it? Are they trying to figure out how to move forward, how to proceed? So tell us, how does it work over there for a significant event like that for sports?
The reason I text you that was I just feel that, the UK is they're very traditional. They keep with a lot of, traditions from back in the day. And I just thought that, with that happening and the fact that she'd reigned for, I believe, 76 years, that they would do that. Did I agree with it? Calling off some of the sports is easy to do, golf, soccer, and stuff like that. But combat sports is slightly different. You've got people that have flown over there, teams that have gone over there. The fighters don't get a weekly wage like they do in soccer and other sports. They only get paid if they fight. And obviously, footballers and other sports, they don't have to make weight. And also when you fly to a country, it's also harder to get weight. I believe that when you're up at altitude, you hold water more. That's why a lot of fighters will go over to countries, a lot sooner than they need to, just to acclimatize and get used to that and be able to cut weight quicker. So I think they should have probably let the boxing go ahead because it is slightly different, and just have done like the national anthems, a minute silence, or like do the bell for a minute and stuff like that, just to show like a mark of respect to the Queen. And then we could have kind of carried on, and the sports that are kind of easier to postpone, I think, they could have done that as a mark of respect to them. Or I think in this day and age, I think, just having stuff like, banners and the national anthem and, cheering or doing a minute silence, whatever, I think is, in my opinion, I think would have been the way to go, just kind of let people to show respect that way.
Right. I completely understand that. Do you think that if they would have proceeded forward with, let's just say, this event, the Shields versus Marshall, or any boxing event for that matter over there in the UK, do you think that the expected crowd that they plan to have would have all shown up? I mean, everybody's different. Some people probably wouldn't have went, but do you think it would have affected the actual crowd size?
I don't believe so, because I think, the funeral wasn't for I believe it's like another week or something like that, like 9 days from the days that it happened. Um, and I think people have already kind of purchased tickets. They've already purchased travel, hotels, flights, anything else that they need to do. And in this, with how the economy is lately over in the UK and over here in the US, I think once you've probably paid that money out, I'm sure people really want to attend. I just think that as sad as it is to say, I think stuff just carries on eventually. After like a day or two, people kind of just carry on, and I'm sure people will come to a standstill on the day, of the funeral and stuff like that, and watch all the TV shows, and they'll gather in the streets and outside, just to pay their respects to her. But yeah, I think on that day, just the next day, I think people probably would have attended.
So who else in the UK? I guess I'm assuming it would be some type of government official or high. But I don't know, obviously, who's higher than the Queen. I mean, would it be the Prime Minister? If something happened like that, God forbid, would they? Who has the status in the UK where that would happen again? Obviously, it's now. Is there her son? He's the king.
Prince Charles, yeah, Prince Charles is now King Charles, yeah,
right. Yeah. So, I mean, besides him and whoever takes over for that position every single time, is there anybody else in that country that would happen for?
Well, it was very similar for, kind of going off boxing here, aren't we? But we're very similar for.
Well, I'm just trying to get our audience to expect if it happens again.
I'm not the biggest royalist. You're probably best off, probably calling my grandmother. She could probably give you a better.
We'll get her on
answer.
eventually. She'll come on.
But given, I think the tragedy, obviously, with Princess Diana, the whole country, I think, and I think the US as well. I do get quite a lot of questions about her from people in the US because of the effect that she had on the world, I guess. The way that she was and the way that she tragically died. But yeah, I think it really just depends, doesn't it? How much limelight they get, because there are certain royals that you don't really see in the newspaper. And I'm sure there's probably ones that if they were mentioned to me and you, we wouldn't even know they were a royal. So yeah, I think it's how long's a piece of string sort of question. Certain people will probably be looked at like that, and there'll be days of mourning. And I'm sure there's other people in the royal family that unfortunately could pass away and we wouldn't really notice. As sad as it is to say, I guess.
So it's only if it's the Prime Minister, would that happen again?
It's a good question, to be honest with you. I would say so. Yeah, I would say so, because it's the technically the leader of the country, right? It's the equivalent of Joe Biden or Trump passing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because obviously it did affect not just boxing in the UK, but it affected all sports and all, I guess, entertainment shows and activities that were going to happen in that day and the following subsequent days, pretty much, right?
Yeah, it'll be. I wonder how it affected, ex-British Empire countries. Obviously, we don't live in Canada or Australia and stuff like that. I wonder if they did something similar due to the fact they were part of the British Empire. And they are countries that she would visit on a regular basis.
Was the Queen a boxing fan? Tell us, Mike. Tell us.
That's a good question. I know that she has, met and spoken to people like Amir Khan and stuff like that, but I think she's more into horse racing, soccer.
Really?
Soccer as well.
Oh, yeah, that's different. The rest of the world, besides the United States, essentially, and I apologize to our American listeners, the rest of the world, the sport for the rest of the world is football, a.k.a. soccer, right? I mean,
yeah,
that's what it is. That's what it is. But for us, on this podcast, it's boxing. So we're going back into the boxing hole. So like I said, no reviews from this past weekend and the past week because of the Queen's passing. So we're jumping straight into the previews. Probably arguably the biggest preview of the year. The trilogy is happening in just a couple of short days. This upcoming Saturday, the 17th of September, Mexican Independence Day. I don't even know if it actually like it's actually this weekend or if it's like another day. I feel like I need to get my historical information right on this. But it's September in some form or fashion. From the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas on DAZN, Saul El Canelo Alvarez goes up against Gennady Golovkin. These are for Canelo's super middleweight undisputed 168 world titles. IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO super middleweight world titles. As I mentioned, third fight, the trilogy, which everybody expects to be the last. Is it going to be the last though, Mike? If Triple G wins, are we going to see a fourth one? Are we going to see a Pacquiao Marquez type of partner dance around here? What do you think?
That's a good question. I was actually going to fire that question back at you. So you put it to me instead. I think it depends on the nature of the finish. If it was, a really, really close fight and Triple G maybe just sneaked it, but he did look like Father Time had caught up with him, maybe he would just be like, you know what, I'm going to take this victory and I'm going to run off into the sunset now. It being, 40 years of age. This is his 45th fight. It would be a good time to call it, I guess. Call it whilst you're on top of the tree. I'm sure he's made enough money to live a nice life for him and his family. I think if Canelo wins, yeah, I think that's it. And I think Triple G may retire. I think he said in an interview today, I saw Keith Idek posted that this is his last fight with DAZN. And, I think even if he lost, I think if he puts on a good show and doesn't get smoked in the first round, I think we're all going to be, pleased to see, the Triple G walk away. He's given us years and years of entertainment. He came out of nowhere, I think he was probably liked more by the, Hispanic and, Mexican fans with the fact that Canelo kind of ducked him, right? Didn't want to fight him. Actually dropped a belt, I believe, to stay away from him. And a lot of the people I work with who are of Mexican heritage, they prefer Triple G, and some of them still do. Some of them actually, I've worked with one guy who hates Canelo, and he hates it every time he wins, and it's kind of funny, to be honest with you. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it depends on the nature of the finish. I think Triple G could walk away. I think with his age and 45th fight and stuff like that, it would be a good way to to finish. In Vegas, huge event, especially if he wins. If he does it, does like a Marquez, right, where he beat Pacquiao, which wouldn't give him the rematch.
That'd be nuts.
Yeah, if he caught, because he's got a puncher's chance. Canelo has an unbelievable chin, and
they both do. They both do. I mean, the only thing is that Golovkin's 40 years old now. He's 4 years older, essentially, than he was in their last fight.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but have we ever seen Canelo rocked? Can you think of a time where
didn't he get rocked by was it Hatton?
By Matthew Hatton?
Yeah. Was it Matthew Hatton, or was it? He's been hurt
in recent times. I can't think of a point
in recent times. I don't think he's no.
Because even that one that you always see on the replay from, I believe it is the first or the second fight, where Triple G catches him flush.
But even then, that didn't rock him.
No, exactly. That's what I was going to go to. He catches him flush right on the whiskers, as they say. And he kind of his face goes to one side and then he just carries on, just looks at him and just carries on fighting. Didn't even phase him, didn't even slow him down for a second. So yeah, these two are just so well matched, aren't they? They both got great chins, can both punch, good mixture of styles, good defense on both of them. That's why I think we've been waiting so long to get this trilogy, and it's probably come a little bit too late. It would have been better to have come off the return, off the second fight, just, gone round and done it 6 months later or something like that. Triple G is a little bit fresher. But, Canelo kind of hated him, didn't he? And didn't want to give him that payday after what he said, when he tested positive. He obviously called him a cheat and stuff like that. And Canelo didn't want anything to do with him because I think he knew, obviously, that he's the biggest payday for Triple G. So he's like, well, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to give him that?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And support for the Last Round podcast is brought to you by Manscaped.com, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels below the waist. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 6 million men all around the world who trust Manscaped.com with this exclusive offer for you from us in our partnership with Manscaped.com. 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Anywhere in the world, free. They don't charge you shipping. They're not going to charge you $50 if you ship from, the UK or wherever. They're not going to charge you that $100 like some companies do. They're not going to do that. As long as you use our code TLRBoxing. That's TLRBoxing at Manscaped.com for 20% off. If my math is correct, that's about 12 million balls, 12 million nut sacks. So we've had it. We've had their stuff, Mike. We've had their stuff for about a month now. I was just in Las Vegas with a bunch of friends, and I brought the Manscaped stuff. I brought quite a few things to take it, to keep my hygiene, family jewels, all that stuff keep going. I was using some of the stuff. Some of the guys that I was there with saw the stuff on in my bag and stuff. They're like, "Oh, I've been wanting to try that. What do you think about it? But isn't that expensive?" And I said, "No, check it out." And they started looking on the site, saying, "Oh, you know what? These guys advertise everywhere." And I thought they were, very expensive stuff. Like, oh, it's probably like $200, $199. No, there's stuff on there that you don't, affordable for everybody. And not only is it affordable, you get a discount on top of that affordability with TLR Boxing for 20% off. So far, so good, right, Mike? What do you think about the stuff now that we're 30 days in trying out their stuff?
It's good quality, well priced, and it smells good as well. This leaves you feeling like $1 million, Dan.
Like $1 million. It's time to take care of yourself. So go to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free worldwide shipping with the code TLRBoxing. Again, TLRBoxing for 20% off. Please help us out. It kicks us back some support, keeps this show going, expands the reach, and gives us more opportunity to give you more content within this crazy world we call boxing. And now, back to the show. I mean, think about it like this, too. I'm going to pose this question to you. If Golden Boy and Canelo, and to an extent DAZN, at least at that time, didn't have the falling out that they had, where Canelo sued Golden Boy and DAZN to nullify his contract, and then he eventually got out of it, became a free agent of some sort, essentially, and has been kind of on a fight-by-fight basis, 2-fight deal here and, something like that. And there was also, during that period when that was happening, there was, I think Canelo or his team had said that they were made aware that Golden Boy had in the contract that, you have to fight, Canelo has to fight Triple G for the DAZN agreement. And Canelo supposedly was not aware of that and didn't like that. And that contributed to the severance of the relationship between him and Golden Boy in a certain aspect. Do you think if that never happened, would we have seen this fight maybe last year? Maybe a little earlier? What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to say because he seems to chase legacy, doesn't he? Like he's been going around chasing belts, when when a certain champion has a belt and he believes, or his team believe, that stylistically it's a good matchup for him, Canelo pounces on that. And he can really pick and choose who he wants because, he's the cash cow. He's the biggest name in the sport. So, nobody's going to turn down a fight against him. So, like, picking Bivol at that time with him being like a smaller light heavyweight, didn't pay off. But you could see going into it, like on paper, like, okay, that's a good matchup for Canelo. He's smaller. He's not a huge guy like a Zurdo, for example. So that kind of it's hard to say, but I think we could have seen it maybe slightly sooner. I could see, the way that Canelo is, that I'm sure no one kind of dictates to him, what's going on. And the fact that they tried to push him or corner him into that, I could see him kind of saying like, no, like I'm in charge. I choose who and when I fight, not you.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely nail on the head with that. But at the end of the day, he is Canelo. He is the biggest star in the world. Like, I wonder if... Do you think Triple G, ever since he signed with DAZN, because he had the expectation signing with DAZN, okay, I'll get the Canelo fight. And Triple G's had some criticism in terms of his opponents since fighting on DAZN. Like saying, oh, you're kind of taking some softer touches because you're trying to I don't want to say survive, but you're trying to stay above water until you get the Canelo payday once again. Are you disappointed in his lack of opponents? I mean, I think his best opponent since he signed with DAZN after HBO went under was who's the guy Charlo fought? Eastern European guy.
Derevyanchenko?
Derevyanchenko. Was that the best fight he's had since signing with DAZN in terms of competitiveness? Because Derevyanchenko did hurt him. If you remember, that's when that referee jumped in for no apparent reason when Triple G was hurt to the body. Was that the best fight he's had so far?
Yeah, I would say so. I believe so, because if you look at like the people that he's been in against, it's kind of Murata, Kamil Zerameta, Stevie Rolls, and obviously Derevyanchenko. So yeah, I would say so. Especially at that time, because Derevyanchenko only had one loss at that time. And, he was known as the technician, and that fight was super, super, super close. Obviously went to the scorecards and, Triple G got it, but being the big name and obviously everyone talking about like how, they were going to do the trilogy, he was probably 2 or 3 rounds up, before the first bell even rang.
That's true. Ideally, that's what happens. But we got Canelo, like I said, 57-2-2, and Golovkin 42-1-1. Golovkin's only loss has come against Canelo Alvarez. His only draw has come against Canelo Alvarez. Whereas Canelo's 2 losses have come against Floyd Mayweather, and most recently, the light heavyweight champion of the world, WBA light heavyweight champion of the world, Dimitri Bivol. So, I guess I can't ask that. I don't know why I was leaning towards like who's okay. Obviously, Canelo's prime still isn't over. He's in the thick of it. But once it's all said and done, who's had the more dominant prime career, the prime years of their career? Gennady Golovkin or Canelo Alvarez? Can we give Gennady Golovkin sort of a pass in a way because a lot of people didn't want to fight him when he started to fight over here in the United States, like in 2012, 2011?
I think I would have to go with Canelo on that. I think he's got the better resume, Yeah, because when you look at it, like he's been in there with like, even though some of these guys are obviously towards the latter end of their career, like a Shane Mosley, Floyd Mayweather, he lost, but he dared to be great in that sort of fight. Lara, James Kirkland, Cotto, Amir Khan, even though Amir Khan had moved up in weight for that, Chavez Jr. At the time, he's not the shell of Chavez Jr. that we see now, but at the time, Chavez Jr., Triple G 3 times, Jacobs, Kovalev, Callum Smith, obviously big at the time, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant, Dimitri Bivol. Yeah, I think in terms of resume, I think you have to go with Canelo because, he's dared to be great. He's moved up and down, various weight divisions and picked up belts in all of them.
Who wins on Saturday then? Who are you going for?
I think you'd be silly to bet against Canelo. I think the fact that he lost to Bivol and a lot of people have counted him out and kind of replaced him at the top of the pound for pound with probably Usyk, I think actually bears badly for Triple G because with the sort of person that he seems to be,
Canelo wants to knock him out too. That's what he said. He's like, I need to knock him out. He's like, I'm going to knock him out.
He's got an unbelievable chin though, but Father Time is.
He's going to try. I think he's really going to try. But I also think Triple G is going to try too. I really think Triple G is just going to throw it all on the line. He's like, well, I think whether he wins or loses, he retires.
See, I was gonna go Canelo points, but now you've said that, I'm thinking maybe Canelo like stoppage.
I think whether he wins or loses, I'm talking about Triple G. Like I said, he retires.
I could see it, to be honest with you, because of the fact that what's he got left? He's 40 years old. He's not going
to get a Charlo fight. Charlo's not going to fight him.
No, and what's he's done, magnificent things, and if he manages to win, he then gets, some world titles at super middleweight. He's earned so much money. He's got legions of fans, and why be one of those people that maybe stays a fight or 2 or 3 fights too long? I would rather, he win, lose, or draw in this fight. He rides off into the sunset, and we've got all those memories of Triple G because some people are probably around our age, Dan. We mention like Roy Jones Jr. or James Toney, and they just see James Toney fighting up at heavyweight, super fat, just going in there like a journeyman, like a sparring guy, just covering up, for a payday. They don't remember the James Toney that we probably saw at the start of our, boxing fan career, I guess. And, I don't think we'll see that from Triple G. And I think he's wise enough, and I think he has a clever enough team around him. And he probably doesn't need the money. That I think that finish on top, win, lose, or draw, you're going out in Vegas, all the lights, in a trilogy, in one of the biggest fights of the last 10 years.
He's going to throw it all on the line. I fully expect that. Why wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he?
They both will. They'll both go down fighting, and especially Canelo. Triple G seems to be kind of very blasé about him, like looking at him like, why are you so angry? I think he kind of gets the fact that of what he said to Canelo has kind of pissed him off so much.
Well, it's true though. I mean, I think I agree with the Canelo. Canelo's had a point where he said in interviews, because for the longest time, Canelo was the quiet one, and then Triple G signs with DAZN, Canelo signs with DAZN, and then there's back and forth in the media that Canelo doesn't want to fight him. He doesn't want to give him another payday. That's when Triple G starts talking crap through the media, and then they start interviewing him in his native language of Kazakhstan, and it's easier for him to get across the feelings and the information that he wants people to know, that what he's actually feeling. And he starts talking the way he wants to talk. And he starts talking shit, starts talking crap about Canelo Alvarez. And Canelo called that out. Especially when I was at the, well, actually we were both there at the, oh no, was it just me? No, it was just me. It was me and Luis, our photographer. We were at the kickoff press conference in Hollywood, California for this trilogy fight, Canelo Triple G. And they're both on stage doing the press conference, and Canelo gets a question like that, and he's like, yeah. He's like, he's been talking all this crap for a couple years now. He's like saying that I'm this or that, I'm a cheater, I'm this and that. He's like, and you ask him face to face right now, and he doesn't say anything. And it's true. I mean, it's like, oh, well, he's got you there, you know. But you also got to look at it from the other side. Triple G's the type of guy, like, he's not really going to tell you anything to your face. He's going to be like, oh, he's like, I'll just fight you in the ring. I'll show you with my fist. Canelo's pretty much the same way, has been the same way until the last couple years where he's really shown a little bit more personality. But I think maybe it's also Triple G's way to like get under his skin. He's like, why is he getting so mad for? You know, maybe kind of throw him off his game a little bit. But either way, I'm hoping, and I'm kind of expecting this third fight will be the best fight of the entire trilogy. Do you agree or disagree? What do you think?
That's a big ask because both of them have been pretty good, haven't they? It could be a little bit more action packed. I could see that we may get, somebody going down, somebody getting dropped, just due to the fact that Canelo seems very pumped up, and I think he's going to go for it, which could leave some openings for Triple G. And at the same time, Triple G being a little bit older, maybe a little bit slower, chin maybe not as good, could lead to the fact that, even he may go down. But I think we're going to see a tremendous fight. I think it's just one of those ones where the styles clash, and the fact that they don't like each other just makes it even better. Kind of like Morales Barrera, right?
Right. Yeah. No, exactly.
You couldn't stand
and
each
that,
other.
that actually, you made me think of something interesting now. We talk about Morales Barrera, how they hated each other. They hated each other. But they're pretty good friends now. They had a podcast. I don't know if they still have it, but they had a podcast together. They would do events together. They were, they were getting along pretty well. They were, you could probably call them friends, as I said. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, are we going to be able to say that about Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin?
Yeah, I would say so, because if you look at like some of the feuds that we've seen in boxing, like Conor Benn, Chris Eubank, seniors, they didn't like each other. Morales, Barrera, like you touched on. Just over time, I think, people chill, stuff that
De La Hoya Vargas to an extent.
Yeah, I think, just over time, you kind of chill as a person, probably just the lower testosterone you have in your body. You don't care as much about the stuff that kind of like when you're younger, like really gets under your skin and like pisses you off. And I'm sure the fact that those two are going to retire with a lot of money, happy families and stuff like that 5, 6, 7, 8 years from now, they'll be in Vegas at an event together. They'll see each other and, they'll shake hands, especially if there's nothing else said. If Triple G loses it and goes into retirement and doesn't say anything else to kind of like poke the fire, I'm sure, yeah, they'll get over it. Especially if Canelo goes in and wins. He's technically be 2 wins and a draw over Triple G, right? You'd think that it would be the other way around, essentially, that Triple G would be the one like what the fuck? Like, you've got a win and a draw, and like I haven't, a lot of people had him winning technically at least one of the fights. Do you think he would be the one that's kind of like pissed off and wants to go in there and like, hey, I can't get a win on the card. I'm going to have to knock him out.
Right. Canelo's already made it known that he wants to fight Bivol. I think he's already said this week during fight week, since they got to Vegas, that he wants that fight next, assuming he wins this fight against Triple G. But assuming he loses, I think Canelo's going to try to beat the drum to try to get the fourth fight. And honestly, I know we talked about Marquez not giving Pacquiao another fight. He was like, oh no, I won. I'm going out on top. That could possibly happen with Triple G. One last FU, like, oh, suck on this, Canelo. I beat you. Especially if he knocks him out or something. He's like, oh no, you're not getting a rematch. He's like, you can live with that for the rest of your career. You know, I could see that. But if they offer Triple G a ton of money again, like, hey, we'll give you $10 million more than the last fight. Oh, okay. Well, maybe I should, you know, maybe I should do it.
Lennox Lewis Klitschko.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They offered him supposedly something like, I think I've heard Lewis say like 75 million, 100 million to come back and do that fight. And he was just like, no.
Yeah. That's nuts. Yeah, you're right. It could happen. Triple G could be like, no. You know, I mean, everybody has a price.
Especially if that
for the $1 million man
really grates on Canelo and pisses him off. Imagine being Triple G and like knocking him out and then just saying no rematch.
Yeah, I could honestly see that. I could honestly see that. And you know how much it would get under Canelo's skin? You'd be like, man, he would have to carry that for the rest of his life. And Triple G is just like, oh yeah. He's like, out of all 3 fights, I definitively beat him on any of the 3. You know? It's crazy. But I could totally see Triple G doing that. And just with that big smile that he has, just like, yeah, stuck on that. You know? I don't know, man. I don't know. But like I said, we got Bivol Ramirez towards the end of the year, I think, over there in the Middle East. And Canelo said he wants Bivol. I think he's even said in prior interviews that he doesn't even care if Ramirez beats him. He still wants to fight Bivol again. Right?
Yeah, I just don't get like what's with this like I don't want to fight Mexican fighters thing. I don't.
I think it's a Golden Boy thing, man. Ramirez is with Golden Boy. If Ramirez was with Top Rank or even with the Zone, but with Matchroom, I'm telling you, I think it's a Golden Boy thing. I don't think Canelo and his team want to associate with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, which is unfortunate because, you know, Zurdo Ramirez is a huge fighter. He'd probably be a cruiserweight, but it'd be an interesting arc of a story where Golden Boy Promotions, who's had Canelo since he was like a teenager and loses him, you know, after some legal troubles and the whole situation there. And they go with the other promoter who also has the same broadcast partner. And then Top Rank has some issues with their, you know, essential Mexican star, and Zurdo Ramirez. And Golden Boy picks him up, which I'm assuming thinking, hey, if we get Zurdo Ramirez, now that Canelo's fighting at 175, we're kind of possibly back in the Canelo sweepstakes. Let's try to get Ramirez to win a title, to get some significant wins, to beat the drum, to get Canelo in the ring. And then they're kind of back in it. Maybe De La Hoya tries to make amends. You never know. I mean, right? I mean, you would think that would be the unspoken strategy over there, right?
Yeah, you would think so. I could see the fact that kind of the grudges or, you know, how focused he is as a guy. I could see Canelo being like, you know, regardless of Ramirez beating Bivol, I want Bivol, then I'll fight you. Just because of, like you said, like, you know, the fact of like, if Triple G wins, he's got one over on him. That's what Canelo seems like. You know, like, you know, no, I want you. You beat me. I don't care about you, Ramirez. You can be further down the line. I want Bivol. Just because he just seems very like that, doesn't he? Like focused, like, no, like you beat me. Like, even if you beat him at Monopoly, he's probably like, I'm going to come back and beat you twice, just so I'm ahead. And then, you know, but because some of the biggest fights as well, though, like, you know, whether the Mexican American, like, we need to see him in there. I think with the Zurdo, you know, and Benavides.
Yeah,
you know, we've been beating that drum for how long? Mm-hmm. And he fights Triple G. He then goes to fight Bivol. I think those are the only 2 left, right?
Charlo.
Charlo, yeah.
I don't see how Charlo doesn't end up fighting Canelo within the next maybe year.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't see it. I don't see how he does not fight him. I mean, Charlo and PBC had an opportunity to fight Gennady Golovkin for how many couple years now?
Yeah.
And they obviously, you know, aged him out. So that fight's never gonna happen. And we were looking forward, like we thought that fight could happen, but it didn't work. And Charlo and I think is it Jamal? Yeah, who's Jermel or Jamal is the middleweight.
Give me 1 second. I've got a box rec here.
Jermel. I think it's Jermel. I don't even know. No, I'm blanking.
Why is he not showing up?
Jermel. Anyways,
Jamel's the one at super welter.
so Jamal Charlo is the middleweight. How old is Jamal Charlo right now? 33? Something like that?
Yeah, around there. Jamel is 32.
Aren't they twins? Right? They are twins. Yeah, they're twins. So yeah, he's the same age as Canelo Alvarez. They're pretty much the same age. They're within probably several months apart or what have you. You can't, he's not 7 years, 8 years older than Charlo, like Gennady Golovkin was. Like, oh, let's wait to age him out. He's going to have to fight either. Okay, who does Charlo fight first? Ideally, Benavidez or Canelo?
Ooh. See, with the PBC thing, you could see the Benavidez, right?
I could, yeah, you could.
Just because of they like to keep everything in house.
But don't you think that Charlo, if he had options, and they said, "Hey, you either go this route to Benavidez or you go this route to Canelo," who are you going to choose?
I'm sure if it's up to him, you're going to go for the one with the most money, right?
Right? You're going to go with Canelo.
Not only is it the most money, but it's also in terms of legacy, belts, and stuff like that. Pay-per-view,
right.
It's win-win.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know, man. I hope Charlo gets in there, man, and becomes like his brother, Jermel, 154 pounder, and really just pushes it to the limit because, yeah, man, he fought Derevyanchenko, and he said that was a tough fight, and he had I think he said after that fight that it was the guy can hit. I mean, I don't know. But I think going back to that one topic we were just talking about, if Triple G wins and just stops, he's like, "Oh no, I'm not giving you a rematch." Wait, I mean, if that happens, that's hilarious, man, and I could totally see that happening, especially with this being his last fight on the DAZN contract. You never know. You never know. Do you think Triple G goes off into the sunset in terms of he stops like being associated with boxing, and just kind of lives a quiet life in the shadows, or does he try to stay involved, Triple G Promotions or something like that?
Nah, I think he's one of those ones that disappears. Yeah.
Lives
a quiet life, just goes about, does his own thing, doesn't really do interviews, probably doesn't even really attend events. I can see him not really attending events as well. He's not big into being interviewed, is he? So I don't see him going on there and being like a commentator or anything like that. I can imagine he just disappears and lives a nice, quiet life.
On that note, final note, give us a prediction. Who are you taking? What round? What's the outcome in this trilogy, which arguably, I don't even say arguably, it's likely the end of an era between these two fighting over the last, 5-6 years. What are you thinking? How does it end?
See, now I've convinced myself a late stoppage. Like 10, 11, 12. Canelo wins in a late stoppage. Even if it's not knocking him out, like just has him against the ropes and he's just kind of been beating him down, and the referee just jumps in and was like, "Hey, that's enough. We've seen enough."
Yeah, I don't think it's a complete knockout where he just knocks his lights out cold.
Yeah,
I think it's one that the referee steps in. TKO.
yeah,
Yeah, I think the referee steps in, and I agree with that. Late rounds, 10 to 12. Actually, no, I'm going 9 to 12. Yeah,
yeah. I can.
because
Yeah,
I mean, like, and it's hard to say that about Triple G, but Father Time is undefeated, like we've always said on the show during the last couple of years. He's 40 years old. He hasn't been as active as Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez has fought his last several fights in higher weight classes. Triple G has stayed at 160 pounds. Canelo Alvarez has been fighting guys bigger than him during the last 3-4 years and just fought somebody like Bivol. He fought Kovalev. I guess Callum Smith, Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders cleaned out 168, became undisputed. He's in his prime at 32 years old. He's got everything on his side. You just got to look at the resume and the skills and the development and the point in the career. And everything tips to Canelo by a heavy margin. But you can't count out Gennady Golovkin. He's a disciplined guy. He's a disciplined guy. He's always made weight. He goes, he's calculated. He went on that knockout streak for 21 straight knockouts or something for how many years? And that's why I think like we talked about earlier, he has nothing to lose. He's going to go for it.
Mm.
But he's going to go for it opening himself up to more damage. Cuz you have to. When you go for it, you're going to create openings whether you like it or not. But I agree. I think Canelo TKO stoppage 9 to 12.
yeah.
9 to 12.
He's still got his chin from what we've seen. I thought in his last fight, this is Triple G I'm talking about, I thought it did take him a few rounds to get going. Like the old engine needed a couple of rounds to kind of warm up when he was fighting Murata. And then obviously he kind of got into cruise control and, took over. And, you can't do that against Canelo. And
right.
If anything, though, if there's going to be anything that's going to fire you up and get you into camp and get you going from the first bell,
and
it's fighting a trilogy against probably your biggest rival, right?
And you know what Canelo's gonna? I mean, what he's been doing in his last several fights. Obviously, it didn't work too much against Bivol, but Bivol did show his arm and that it was messed up. But he did it with Callum Smith. Canelo added that to his arsenal ever since the last time he fought Triple G, where he attacks the arm. He attacks the arm so he can neutralize it.
Mm.
So you can drop the arm and you drop your guard and it gives him openings. I mean, you don't think he's going to do that again with somebody like Triple G?
It's going to be interesting to see what style of Canelo we see. Do we see that old school, like kind of more of a boxer style that we kind of became accustomed to? But over the last few fights, against like your Callum Smith, your Billy Joe, he became more sort of slower, ponderous, kind of didn't mind losing rounds like he did against Kovalev, because when he did connect, they were big power shots, like the ones that we see to the body. And then he would always be like, he'd have so much confidence, like, okay, like, when he was fighting Kovalev, I thought he was losing on the cards, but he had so much confidence, like, I'm going to catch him and I'm going to knock him out. And he did. So it's going to be interesting to see, do we see that sort of style, or do we see, a higher work rate Canelo? Do we see someone who's going to, box and move a little bit more? Kind of like when he fought, I think he had that sort of style a little bit more when he fought Danny Jacobs. But when he fought like Billy Joe, Callum Smith, and those guys, it was that slower, heavy-handed, less shots, but heavier shots.
Right. No, right. Yeah. Either way, I'm looking forward to this fight. One last note. How does it perform on pay-per-view? It's $85. What do you think?
It's a good question.
I think 4.
Yeah, the first number that came into my head when you said it was 500,000. But I'm thinking maybe it's behind like DAZN. Everyone has DAZN. The streaming, it's kind of priced a little bit kind of high.
I think 4.
Yeah. I'm going to be boring, and I'm actually going to agree with you. I think slightly less because of that.
Yeah.
It's the only big fight this weekend, though, right? There's not much else this weekend that's.
Oh yeah. I mean that tips in their favor, but
yeah,
football's back in at least the American football.
Yeah,
in the United States. Yeah, I don't think it's going to perform as what they expect, and they're paying these guys each what? Maybe. What do you think?
Well, Canelo's going to be what 30.
Canelo made, I think, in his last fight. I think he's been when he signed that contract, it was for what? How much per fight? Do you remember?
Well, he signed that big one, didn't he? And then they relinquished it.
Yeah, but how much per fight was each fight?
30. It was like 360 million in total, right?
Right. That came out to be what?
33 million a fight, I think.
His last couple fights since severing that contract have been way over that. I think Canelo gets an easy 50 million for this fight.
Whew.
I do. And Triple G gets what? 20 to 30?
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, I would say something like 15 to 20.
Yeah, maybe
a little bit of pay-per-view upside and stuff like that. I mean, either way, it's good to see that they're both getting paid, especially what they've done for us as fans. It's great to see Triple G get a good payday, and Canelo deserves it as well. He dares to be great.
Dares to be great, right? For the legacy.
Yeah, the amount of weight divisions he's gone through, the people he fights, the stuff that he puts on, he puts bums in seats. Fair play to him. He deserves it. And
yeah,
if he was in the UFC, he wouldn't be getting paid anywhere near that for doing something similar, right?
Crazy. Moving on in the co-main event, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, the WBC super flyweight champion of the world, at 16-0, goes up against Israel Gonzalez, who is 28-4-1. I mean, what else could we say about Jesse Bam Rodriguez? Ever since he subbed in as a last-minute replacement, I think it would get against Carlos Cuadras. He's been taking over that flyweight division. Who else is hotter than him in the flyweight division right now? Right?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see. Now you hear everybody talking about him on all different podcasts, on TV, everywhere you look, people are, mentioning his name. And I watched a recent interview with Robert Garcia where he was saying that, secretly, like in his head, people would come up and say, like, hey, my son's going to be the next big thing out of your gym, Robert. Robert would be like, oh, okay. But in his head, he's thinking to himself, nah, Bam is the next big thing out of my gym. And, it's been proven right. We kind of knew about him thanks to Josh, his older brother.
His brother Joshua Franco.
Yeah, his older brother, like being very honest and saying like, he's the talented one. And as soon as he had that big step up.
Even then though, when Joshua Franco was on our show just after he won his world title, and we asked him about that, and he said, "Oh yeah, my brother is the next guy. Like, keep an eye out for him. You're going to notice him." And I thought, oh, okay, he's training Robert Garcia. I'm sure he's going to make some noise. But it kind of makes sense. Like, oh, well, yeah, well, your family. You're going to say, oh yeah, my brother. You want to give him publicity? Hey, that makes sense. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. I'm sure he'll make some noise. Hey, man, I don't want to say I'll say it. Like I was wrong in how I misjudged that situation, because Joshua Franco has been totally right with everything he said. Bam Rodriguez has shown that at 22, 23 years old, he is the guy at the flyweight division. He can even move up to super flyweight, which I think he might have, and still probably be the man there. You know,
Mm.
and we still have how many more years of him? Maybe another
Yeah.
15.
The WBC belt that he picked up was at Superfly.
Right.
I could see like move back down, pick one up at Fly and Superfly. I'm sure he could, at the young age that he is. And it's just going to be great to see him in there, with like Estrada, Chocolatito, Ioka, Tanaka, Martinez, Rung Visai, Donny Nietes.
Are we gonna see him against Inoue?
Dude, look how young they are. Why not? Why not?
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
Imagine that fight. That'd be nuts.
There's so many names, at Fly and Superfly that he could fight. It's and the way that he is, and the way that those divisions are, because sadly, due to the lack of money, is they have to fight each other to get those big paydays, and it works out great for us as fans.
Yeah, definitely get our share of the entertainment. Also on the card, Ali Akhmedov. Did I say that right? 18-1 goes up against King Gabriel Rosado. This is for the IBF North American Super Middleweight title. I mean, hey, when you have Rosado on a card, with what is he have? 15 losses, 26-15-1, but he still gets opportunities. He's still going, man. He's still going. We saw him the last time we saw him in person. I think he fought after that, but when he fought
Munguia,
he didn't get knocked out. It was a decision, right?
Yeah, he lost just decision, and then he fought Shane Mosley Jr., if you remember, and lost the majority decision to Shane Mosley Jr.
That's right. Yeah, I couldn't think about the last one, but yeah, Shane Mosley Jr. But look at Rosado still on the cards, man. He's still getting, but it's because of his style. He goes out and he kind of gives you a fan-friendly fight, and it works out. So I don't know how much longer he could go, but I think he's going to go until the wheels fall off, and we'll see what happens. But also on the card, Austin Amo Williams, 11-0, the undefeated 11-0 Williams goes up against Kieran Conway, 18-2-1. This is for the WBA International Middleweight title. What do you think about Amo Williams? Where does he go in his career, especially after a fight like this?
He had that little brief period, didn't he, where he went away for a little break due to some problems with his mental health.
Yeah.
And then ever since he's come back, he's been on a stretch of TKO wins. That Quatavius Cash, Javier Francisco Maciel, and then Chardell Booker last time out, which he blew out in one round. So it's good to have him back. He looks good. He looks like he's tightened up a little bit as well, like in his form. And it's kind of surprising that we get Kieran Conway coming over here. But what a chance for him, to make a big splash over in Las Vegas. And he's been in there with some tricky customers like James Metcalf. So it's going to be great to see what he can do. Like, hopefully the occasion doesn't get to him, because I can imagine just being a boxer and getting your chance to fight on a Canelo undercard in Las Vegas with all the lights. That's going to take some big old balls.
What a moment that is, right?
Exactly.
Also on the card, Diego Pacheco, 15-0, another undefeated fighter, goes up against Enrique Colasso, 16-2-1 for the WBC United States Super Middleweight title. Hey man, all these titles that we keep naming now, they just sound like professional wrestling titles. They really do. It's just like, oh, might as well add like an intercontinental title, and I don't even know. I don't even know. The $1 million championship, might as well add it. Diego Pacheco, like I said, another undefeated fighter. What do you think of him? How does this fight go?
I was just looking, because he's still relatively young. He's like 21 years old. He had a decent amateur pedigree, and I think he's going to be another one of those fighters, kind of like a Ramirez, and Munguia, I guess, where they're still kind of young, but they've got like 30, 40 fights. And there's nothing wrong with that. At the end of the day, he's going in there and he's doing what he needs to do. He's 15 wins, 12 of those by KO. Very rarely does he go past, like the fourth round. He's, got a whole host of first round knockouts, fourth round knockouts. So, but from what we've seen, he's definitely got a bright future, and he's got. Do you remember the one when we were at Pachanga where he just finished that dude?
Yeah.
He's once he gets you hurt, he jumps on you, and he's in there to turn the lights off. So I think he's a very good prospect, and I think they can move him slightly quicker than they're doing, but. He's still relatively young. So maybe
he's young. That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe they're thinking to themselves, what's the point? Just let him get some, more experience under those lights, and we'll pounce when we see like an opening that we think is, right for him at the right time.
And another young guy, just out of the amateur scene, one of the top amateurs in the world for quite a few years, Mark Castro, 7-0, goes up against Kevin Montiel Mendoza, 7-1-2. Castro obviously had a big amateur pedigree. He, like we've said before, the first time we saw him in person was right after the Chavez Jr. Jacobs fight in December 2019 in Phoenix, Arizona, and we saw him meet with Eddie Hearn in the lobby of the Fighter Hotel.
Yep.
And we saw them meet right there and have some brunch or some breakfast, because we interviewed Eddie Hearn right after that, and we asked him about it. So if you guys want to go down a trip down memory lane of how that meeting went, Eddie Hearn talks about it and says, yeah, we had a meeting. We'll see how it goes. But Castro was flown out with his family, like on a private jet from his Fresno, California area home to Phoenix, and it obviously worked. Eddie Hearn signed him. He signed to Matchroom. So, but Castro has shown, even though he's undefeated, do you think he's getting a little bit better in adapting to the pro style, or do you think he's still leaning very heavily towards the amateur style?
I think he's still leaning to the amateur style. I think he needs a change of coach. He still headhunts too much, gets nervous, doesn't like to be hit. Just some of the things, because if you just perfectly selected opponents, when you look at
who likes to be hit, Mike? Who likes to be hit?
Nate Diaz, Gabe Rosado.
Yeah, that's true. I retract my statement or my question.
Yeah, he just. I mean, I was it the Julio Madera fight that we were at? I thought he lost that.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, is that the one where he got knocked down?
Yeah, he got knocked down, and then luckily for him, it was only a 6-round fight, and with him being the A side or the triple A side, due to the fact that he's a hot prospect for them, he was kind of gifted the decision that night. But if you look at the ones early on in his career, he was getting rid of guys. But then his last couple of fights, when they've stepped it up a little bit to opponents that are like 3-1, 7-4, he's going the rounds. He's going 6 rounds with both of those guys, and I don't think either of those performances were very, very, very good. I think I said it before on the channel. I'm not going to distract from it. I don't see him amounting to being a big, amazing world champion that we're all going to be, fawning about in time, unless he moves to a different gym and concentrates on stuff that he's not very good at, instead of just constantly posting, look at my head movement when, on Instagram. But when he gets into a ring, his head movement is near on non-existent, and he constantly just throws, jabs to the head and always headhunts. There's very, very little, shots to the body, mixing stuff up. I don't know whether it's that was a nervous thing, when he was fighting against Madeira, but that was something that I noticed.
Let's see if he proves you wrong, Mike. Like, we've had him on the show in the past, right? Yeah, he was on the show, I think, before.
Yeah.
If he proves you wrong, we're gonna get him back on, and you're gonna tell him you were wrong to his face. We're gonna make that happen.
Really admit it, and look at the evolution of somebody like Canelo. Look at the evolution of the skills and stuff that he's worked on. When you work on stuff that you're not as good at, look at his head movement from his pro debut to the one that everyone always talks about, the Daniel Jacobs fight. It can be done, but you just have to, instead of working on stuff that you are good at or you like doing, you need to work on the stuff that you're not so good at, and it's going to be a painstaking process. But to be an all-round fighter and to get to somewhere like Canelo is or has done, you need to go through that, right?
Right, exactly. Rounding off that card from from Las Vegas, Nevada on DAZN at the T-Mobile Arena, Anthony Herrera 2-0-1 goes up against Delvin McKinley 4-3-1. So like I said, pretty solid, okay card. Co-main event, Jesse Bam Rodriguez, Canelo. But I mean, we've come to notice this, to expect this. When it's an expensive card, when all the money that the main event is really, I guess, demanding, the rest of the card is pretty scarce. You know, the money isn't really spread out too well. So, because the money's all going to the top two guys, which normally it's always how it works, but there's no balance there in the rest of the card. But that's how it is. That's how boxing works. We can have a conversation about UFC pay structure, boxing pay structure. Well, you know what? We should have somebody who advocates for a UFC pay structure and somebody who advocates for a boxing pay structure in combat sports, and have them have a debate on the show. We should make that happen. I think people will be very, very interested with that. We should make that happen. Pros and cons, kind of go back and forth, both sides. That'd be very, very interesting podcast we can do. We'll definitely look into that. News and notes. Callie Sauerland, I think I said that right, responded to news that Chris Eubank Sr., the former boxing star, he was very, very famous. He still is, essentially, intended to pull his son, Chris Eubank Jr., from the upcoming 157-pound catchweight bout with Conor Benn Jr., who is the son of the rival Nigel Benn, or not Conor Benn Jr., I'm sorry, Conor Benn. He's not no junior. But we had talked about this. I think we talked about it last week, and then you also mentioned that. I think when you responded to me, you said that Chris Eubank Sr. is an idiot, and pretty much saying that, oh yeah, that's not going to happen. He's just trying to get some news. But then also we were talking about it, and I think you mentioned, and then I saw other obviously people saying it, which makes a lot of sense. He's like, well, he didn't sign the contract. His son signed the contract. So unless his son pulls out or does something, the fight's going to go on. So we shouldn't have any concern here, right? That fight, at least as of right now, is moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Callie Sauerland, and also, I saw an interview today with Eddie Hearn, said the same thing, like, hey, our contract's with Conor. Our contract is with Chris Eubank Jr. It's not with Chris Eubank Sr. So he can shout and scream all he wants, and until until Chris Eubank Jr. decides to say, hey, I'm pulling out, then that's when we'll have to start looking at something else. But it's not too long. I think it's going to be like 3 weeks. It'll be 3 weeks on Saturday. We get to see that fight, October 8th from the O2 Arena.
Yeah. And you said that it's been trending pretty well over there in the UK, right?
Yeah, I sent you what was it? I sent you the face-to-face match room face off, I guess, of that. And I think when I watched it, it was at 550,000 views in 10 hours.
I believe it. Yeah. Yeah. You know which one would blow that out of the water? Especially, I mean, I'm talking about mostly in the United States, but especially in the UK. Tyson. Ryan Garcia, Tank Davis, because not just because of their respective personalities and their following, but then you're also going to have Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya next to each other on the same stage, press conferences. There's going to be people tuning into that, just like they're tuning into this, just to see the veterans in the back or the veterans interact,
I'd like to see Fury AJ.
Well, now that you mentioned that, good transition. So AJ's management company has said that they have accepted terms for a fight with Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury obviously has made it known that he doesn't really want to fight Usyk. I think he knows because he'll probably make more money with AJ, especially in a fight in London. But like I said, AJ's management team has said that they've accepted all of Tyson Fury's team's terms for a potential fight at Principality Stadium in Cardiff on December 3rd. AJ's company 258 Management tweeted, I believe last Thursday or Friday. But then shortly after that, Queen Elizabeth II passed away, and I think they both released, or AJ's company released, or Eddie Hearn has even said in recent interviews that, they've halted communication for now until, because of that news in the UK. So should we be optimistic here, or for as many times as boxing has let us down in the past, what do you think? Should we not be optimistic?
It's funny because I think we should. The fact that they've done that, and Frank Warren's kind of come up open saying things. Tyson Fury's been open saying things, and it's a 60-40 split in the first fight to Tyson Fury, and then the rematch would be a 50-50 split. Joshua agreed to that. They've already got the date set, but there's just something about it, with how kind of like volatile and crazy like Tyson Fury is, that I don't know, until it's like official and it's signed and we've seen that official poster, there's something in me that just thinks like, don't get too excited yet. But I hope they do. And what a way to kind of end a year of, relatively big fights, a lot of title fights, few undisputed fights. And then, to finish it with a huge domestic dust-up between AJ and Tyson Fury, probably the biggest heavyweight fight for a long time, or if probably ever in the UK. So
yeah, I think I could agree with that. I think you're right.
Yeah, fingers crossed that we do get it. And now it's really just start out the TV contracts, right? And we're good to go. So
yeah, the Zone and ESPN and
BT.
BT.
So just get it done, dude. Like, it's what better time than now? Fury could lose to Usyk, Joshua could lose to like a Wilder. So just do it now. It's probably the biggest payday for both of them. And
I still think Joshua and Wilder fight later on too. I do.
Immense credit to AJ, because he doesn't really shirk a fight. He's just lost twice to Usyk in fights that weren't really close, and then he's going to go and fight Tyson Fury, who is stylistically terrible for Joshua.
Fury's terrible for pretty much all these fighters.
No, he is.
He really is.
Joshua's just been like, yeah, let's do it. So yeah, credit to him and credit to Eddie Hearn.
And then we talked about this at the beginning of the episode, but Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall is likely going to be rescheduled with the provisional date of October 15th at the O2 in London. We talked about it just before we went on air again today. There's a lot of fights on that date. There's a lot of competition on that date. Devin Haney, George Kambosos is on that date as well.
Wilder Helenius
on Showtime, probably pay-per-view.
Yeah, basically.
So yeah, there's a lot of competition, but either way, at least it's scheduled right away, because they could have been like, oh, we need some time to find dates and venues. It seems like they have a tentative plan. They're like, okay, postpone it essentially 30 days out. We're good to go. Hopefully that nothing between now and then happens, and we get that fight, because that is one of the most sought after fights in female boxing in recent years. And especially you want to throw in Michaela Mayer and Bumgarner. That one too. That's an intriguing fight too. So, they're probably going to run that back October 15th, and not run it back, but put it on. Either way, seems like they're trying to get this back as quickly as possible. Excuse me. But once again, we appreciate you guys listening to the Last Round podcast. Don't forget, manscaped.com. Manscaped.com for 20% off. Use the code TLR Boxing. That's TLR Boxing for 20% off. Go check them out. Check out the Weed Whacker. Check out the trimmers, the ball deodorant. Check out the ball deodorant. That thing it's no joke, man. The toner. Like I said, they even got clothes. I know we talk about it. We've talked about it the last several weeks. They got stuff for you guys. And you know what? Stuff isn't really that expensive. I don't even want to say really that expensive. It's not. It's not. You would think, as I had people ask me about it, and they're like, "Oh, it seems like I see them everywhere, but it's not. I feel like they're really expensive." Explore the website. You're gonna see it's all affordable stuff, and you get a 20% off discount on top of it. Check it out. But before we sign off for this week's episode of The Last Round, Mike, go ahead and let them know once again.
We are at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next week. We'll be reviewing the Triple G Canelo fight and then looking forward to Shakur Stevenson, Robson Consensao, Joe Joyce, Joseph Parker, and Maxie Hughes against Kid Galahad.
So for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.